Okay, looks like we're live. What's up, everybody? I was just sharing with our wonderful guest today that this is the first time we have used this platform. And so bear with me as a novice to going live. I have not been a novice when it's come to Zoom and when it's come to Webinar Jam. Just as I was really getting my feet wet with both of those platforms, the team realized that we needed to have an opportunity for our guests and our participants to really see us kind of in a live form. And so now that we are on Facebook Live, we're on YouTube Live, we're going to work on some ways on getting on Instagram Live. We're excited about tonight. And so if you're joining us by either Facebook or YouTube, or maybe you're on the website, because I did place an option on our villageinaction.com website. You can actually see the live stream that's happening right now. So however you're seeing us tonight, if there's a way for you to comment, as we always do, traditionally do make comments, please do so. I've got a few questions that I do want to ask our expert guest tonight, but your questions are just as strong and just as valuable as mine. I'm going to introduce the guests here in a second, but I do want to remind those who are joining us again for our second week in the month, and those who are joining for the first time this month, we're doing an economic empowerment month, particularly within the Black community. And we had guests come on last week that talked about establishing credit. It was a phenomenal discussion around why credit is important, what credit can do for you, how you can leverage your credit, right? And then this week, we're going to do home ownership, the importance of owning a home, the importance of having an asset, why the Black community of all communities is the community that has the least amount of homes. And then next week, we're going to talk about retirement, financial planning, and stocks, investing. So this entire month, we are going to spend on economic empowerment in the Black community. So I'm going to start with top right. It may look different for all of you with Michelle, Sylvester, Coach Ella. Great to see you tonight. I'm going to have the three of you just kind of introduce yourselves really briefly and kind of share with the audience what each of you do.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you, Jason, for allowing me to have this opportunity to present here. My name is Michelle Stringer. I work with Meridian Bank. I have been in the business for over 17 years as a mortgage lender, residential mortgage lender. I work with first-time home buyers. I work with investors, repeat buyers, etc.
Okay, great. Great to have you on tonight, Michelle. Sylvester.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And my name is Sylvester Williams, and I'm a real estate investor. I specialize specifically in multifamilies, and I've been doing it for over 25 years.
Okay, great to have you tonight, Sylvester. And Coach Ella.
Thank you, Mr. Otley, and the guests. My name is Coach Ella. I am a licensed real estate agent here in the DMV. Also, I'm a real estate coach, so I train real estate agents all across the country. Retired police officer, so community connections is my thing. So happy to be here.
Great. Hey, Coach Ella, just for a minute, please go ahead and plug your organization. I do see that you have that phenomenal shirt on tonight. Talk a little bit about just the organization that you have founded and its great success.
Yes, so I work with real estate agents all across the country. Real estate group, Real Estate Ladies Rock. And our mission is, of course, no agents left behind, but we also want to bridge the gap between the real estate industry and the community. So I believe that relationship building with inside our communities where it all starts from. So I believe that we are the resource to the home ownership that you were speaking on. As also, we really are part of people's lives from birth to the end. And so that's what we want the message to be for real estate agents, for the community to understand that we are here for them, just not about purchasing or selling a home.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think that you all probably talk offline, the three of you, some business that you all probably can do together. Okay, so let me go ahead and jump into the first question. I'm interested in knowing from all of you, there is no order. I want you just to go ahead and share from your hearts and your own experiences. Why is the pattern of home ownership and generational wealth building, why is that broken for many Black families?
Anybody going first?
You go ahead, Ms. Ella. You go ahead and go first.
For one, I think from just my experience in working in the Maryland, DC, primarily Prince George's County area, the lack of knowledge, for one, not understanding the true understanding of how the process is. But I think the biggest challenge is financial literacy first. That's just believing that you can own, but it's what comes before ownership. And we just need to get our finances in order a lot of times. And that just kind of prohibits us from even seeking out whether or not this is an opportunity that you can. So I think it needs to start there first, understanding our money and how money works.
I agree with that. I think it's a combination of not understanding faith, not understanding credit, and fear. Because a lot of first-time home buyers that I deal with, even at the millennial age, they're the first ones in their family to own a home. So they don't understand. They are afraid of the process, afraid of the unknown.
Yeah, I'm starting to get a little echo. Can y'all hear? Yeah, I'm not sure where the echo is coming from. Is there anybody that may have this happen twice? Like, are you on your phone and on your laptop?
Nope.
No. Okay, let's try this. Let's have Coach Ellis, Sylvester, and Michelle. Let's have you just mute yourself just for a second. I want to see if it's coming from me. Michelle, go back on mute. Sylvester, go back on mute. Okay, I don't hear the echo now. Okay, Michelle, take your mute off.
Mine's
Echo.
off.
Okay, cool. No, you're good. Sylvester, take your mute off. Okay.
Mine's off now as well.
Okay, no echo. I think it may have been Coach Ella. I got to figure out if Coach Ella's phone, if she may have been on two different devices.
Right.
Say in the same room, in the same. Yeah, I think that might have been it. Okay. So talk for a second. You know, the research, before we jump into all the research, why is it that home ownership, I guess, has not been on the forefront of many Black families' lives, right? Like growing up in Washington, D.C., most of my friends' parents rented homes, right? And so it wasn't until I moved out of D.C. and I was around whites and Hispanics and Asians, I was thinking that everybody rented. It was a new thing for me to know that people own homes. You know,
and Dr. Ali,
talk about that.
Yeah, part of that too, once again, goes back to the culture, unfortunately, and then secondly, the knowledge that Coach Ella and Ms. Stringer had also stated earlier, and then also a piece that we must not also forget is the systemic racism as well, because owning real estate, of course, gives individual power. And with that, there are very entities that simply may steer a certain group towards a certain specific market instead of towards that market of owning real estate. So there are many variables that come into play with it. Some of it is definitely education. Some of it is culture, but then also the banks not specifically lending the finance to purchase the property that's required, and then also the lack of education that's required to maintain real estate as well, because with that comes responsibility also. So you throw all those variables in there, I think that's part of it.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the education piece and the lending. Michelle, answer that from your seat, because you're in the banks, right?
I'm in the banks. I'm in the
What,
banks.
what is the reason why we cannot get more families of color, right, to be approved for loans? And we can go into the stats later. I sent it to you last night of the number of denials for Black families compared to the larger number of the population.
I think it really starts with the basics. I mean, with us as a culture, we're not taught at a younger age like other cultures how important credit is. I think it goes back to the basics of credit and just basic financing. There are a lot of people out here that want to own homes, but unfortunately, they don't have the minimum credit scores in a lot of cases. They don't have the minimum credit scores, and they don't have the funds for the initial down payment and closing costs. Even with as many of the first-time home buying programs that are out here, you still need some cash, and we as a community don't have that.
We buying Benzes and BMWs and parking them outside of the hood. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying something that I don't know, right? Because coming from the streets of DC, that's all that I saw. We saw fancy cars and we saw people, you know, with fancy clothes, but we was in Section 8 living.
And it's just a lack of knowledge. So you can't knock anyone for living that way because they just don't know.
They just don't know.
Right. Once they get out of their familiar circle or their community and they realize that it's more to it, that wealth building does start with real estate. Some people may or may not agree with me with that, but owning your own home is starting your wealth building process. We're just not taught that. I mean, it does go back to education and fundamentals.
Yeah, you're right. And like I said, I wasn't taught that either. Had I not left DC, I wouldn't have known that either.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Coach Ella, talk about the success of just your program and how you've been able to help women understand the importance of asset, understand the importance of home ownership, and then also fight through not just the education piece, but Coach Ella, the collateral and the credit and the putting money down. Like, how have you been able to assist your organization with those three things?
So basically, back with what Michelle has mentioned is it's hard for the lender to approve a lot of times because we don't know, and it would be nice that if this could start in high school. And so, and the reason why I'm saying high school, because you got to understand how money works. You got to understand what credit works. I didn't know for a very long time, even myself, is, you know, what was FICO? Why you get the score that you get? So we get frustrated with a Michelle. And when we go like, oh, I'm trying to get my client approved and they can't, or what is this program? Because so the assumption is that I could just go buy a house. Well, why are we being denied? Because it comes back to we didn't have our money right. We didn't have our credit right. So if we're not taught this, and so when you go back to saying, yeah, my parents, you know, they didn't have, or they were renting, so then now we get this cycle of how do we educate them? So we partner with other nonprofits. We go around and we teach home education because yes, wealth building start with owning property. And you want, you know, to be able to do that. So where do we start that? How do we help everybody to understand it? It might not necessarily be because it is a color or race thing that the reason why you're not getting qualified is you come to the table, to Michelle's table, and you're not ready, or you didn't even know what you didn't know. And so where does that start at? Yes, that should start. We come out of college and you got a school debt, right? And then it's like, okay, Michelle, they paying $500 a month for a school bill. But we defer that. Let's say we just put that on the side and then you're trying to get somebody into a house that never had, you coming from rent and you go into a house. And I had to think about this because we put that on the side. You give them a mortgage, but they still got that debt. You're setting them up for failure already. To be able, are they going to be able to stay in the house is the key. I don't want you to just get a house. I want you to be able to stay in it. And so does that mean disapproving them? Is that we coming in with school debt? And the other cultures may not be coming in with school debt because somebody have paid that debt for them.
Yeah.
So that's a big challenge of how do you, so what we do at Real Estate Ladies Rock with the group is how can you give more credit education classes? Because that's a start? How do you help them to understand in their money? And from a very, very early age, it has to be prior to us saying, okay, come on, let's go get us a house. Because a lot of times they're not ready. They don't have any down payment money because we don't know that.
Mhm.
So we have to teach that. So we do partner up with, your lenders and folks like your organizations and to get them ready. So that should be is how do we get them ready? How do we make them understand that is not necessarily they're being targeted. It's just that they're coming from that situation.
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that, Coach Ella. And Michelle, you mentioned earlier, you said it by saying, everybody might not agree with you, but it don't matter because I agree with you about real estate is really kind of the gateway into financial freedom, right? And then I want you to talk about this a little bit, and then I want Sylvester to kind of segue into the same question, because Sylvester, you are a real estate investor.
You are correct.
Right. And so, Michelle, go back to that point earlier when you were talking about how real estate is really the gateway into financial freedom. And then Sylvester, talk about the success of having multiple homes or multiple multifamily units or apartment complexes. Talk about that.
Okay. As far as the building block for wealth for us, people don't realize, in our area, in the DMV area, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, rent on average is $2,000 a month, which is ridiculous. So basically you're throwing $2,000 a month out of the window every month. And over 1 year, that's $24,000 you've just thrown away in the trash, basically, because you have nothing to show for it. Whereas if you put that money into a home, if you're paying your mortgage with that same $2,000 a month, you're building equity in your house. And a lot of people it's very rare to walk into equity in our area, but it's easy to build equity in our area because our housing values increase more than the average areas in the country. So your housing value is going to steadily increase. You're steadily paying your monthly mortgage. Your equity is just building and building. And you can take that equity if you want to down the road, whether it's a year, 2 years, 5 years from now, you can take that equity and buy more real estate or go into other types of investment with that equity. You can't do that living in an apartment. You can't do that renting from someone else. Sylvester?
Yeah, and basically I'm going to piggyback on what Michelle just said. I did not live in an apartment when I came home from school. I chose to go home and stay with mom for about 2 years. Therefore, I saved my money and took that as a down payment to purchase my first single family. Then I stayed there for 6 years. At that time, the market had increased or appreciated tremendously. So I refinanced that single family home, pulled 20 cash out. Then from me saving on my regular job, I was able to purchase four families at the same time. And one of them, I structured the finance as an FHA loan because I was moving from the single family into the multifamily as my primary. The other three I used back then, they called them seller carrybacks, where the seller will hold a 10% seller carryback. I brought them 5%. So what Michelle basically is saying was the strategy that I used. But once again, that took me, of course, saving. And then my mother was a saver. So I, of course, watched her. I took her values that she taught me and utilized that, of course, into the real estate business. And of course, she also had very good credit. So I saw my mother always pay her bills on time. So I did the same thing. So a lot of things that we are talking about, once again, I think it goes back to being educated, your value system, culturally, and also just knowing, and then more importantly, getting rid of that fear. when I did that purchase, my mother told me I was probably doing too much, but that's just mom's being mom. So,
Right.
and even to this day, I'm taking now what I have learned, and now I'm creating, and similar to what Coach Ella is doing, but on a whole different level. I'm getting together 23 to 25 Black males, and we're going to bring a certain amount to our group. And our whole objective and goal is to start purchasing now more on the larger level of your apartment buildings and your commercial, so that we can have more of a stake in the market. Also, at the same time, educating our people about the real estate. So that is the next phase that I'm working on right now with other individuals to try to take it a step further, because right now the market is so competitive, because right now we got people all over the world that are buying real estate.
All over.
And unfortunately, our people are not seeing what's going on.
Right.
We have individuals now that own hundreds of thousands of units that's from different parts of the world. So by me being in the business and seeing this, I've decided to take a more active approach to start getting Black males together, so we can also start doing the same thing, so that we can also be able to compete. So
I like that, Sylvester. I like that approach. Count me in as one of your 23. You know, if it drops down to 10, count me in. Enough said. You know, it don't take much convincing for me nowadays. Just count me in.
Right.
I like that. Let me just shift just for a second. Another question that I wanted to kind of get at is, we talked a little bit about this. All the questions I sent y'all, we really been kind of having a great conversation on. So I'm going to go back just a little bit and then talk about, how do we see the number increase? We've talked about education. We've talked about, saving money. There's somebody, James Jackson, put it on Facebook. I'm going to show it to y'all if y'all can't see it. He put, look at the bottom of the screen. If we can get all these fancy cars, which cost as much as a house, why is there a problem getting a house, right? So even if we are educated and we start moving in a different direction, because some stats are showing now that there are more Black homeowners than ever before, right? More than we've had. What else will it take to really get it to increase? Sylvester, I liked your idea of coming together, right? But I want to hear from you, Coach Ella, and you, Michelle. What other things can we do to see the number increase amongst Black families?
For one, we need more affordable housing. That's a huge problem, because there's not, let's go affordable and desirable. So it should be both. And so the opportunities could be there, but you think about like what my options are in certain areas. And then maybe they just not thinking about like, okay, I don't want to go to this particular area, but I think all areas, and the taxes, oh my gosh, that'll kind of throw you out of the game on a particular house, is the taxes. And so the question is, why are the property taxes so high in specific areas than it is in other areas? And so challenging that. So how do we fix that? Because a lot of us in the county, if you're in the county, your taxes are so outrageous, you can't, so affordable housing, you might can actually afford the house, but by the time they add the taxes on there, it took you out of the game.
So Coach, because your business is so global, you guys are in all states. Talk about what have you been sharing with the women in your organization about finding cities or counties or states that have low property tax? Has there been conversation around that?
Not with the low. It's almost kind of like, I like what Sylvester is doing as far as, my thing is, we should be buying the block. Like if you have ownership and where you buy the block, then you can dictate what you're going to do. So there's a lot of land out here. So creating that and teaching folks about investing, that is crucial. So Sylvester, if there's anything I can help you out with on that, but that's at another government level. So
Yes.
you kind of ask like, why? I'm in Prince George's County, right? And the taxes are, but it's used for what it's used for. I know not a lot of people are not going to want to hear this, but I got to say it because the thing is why? What is it covering? And it's not a lot of us speaking up to or challenging the taxes. Because if it's the same old system, it's the same old things that are, I don't see any improvements. What are the improvements that will dictate that tax should be that cost? And is it steady rising, but there's no change in anything else? And so we're not able to help a lot of families like we could. And we're one of the richest counties. But we don't have we don't have all of the same things. So now you kind of like, I got to steer you over because so you're saying you're not steering, but you really are because you can't afford to live over here because of the taxes. And that's why. So so Michelle, I know you know that you had a lot of people that just can't qualify. They want the particular house that they can, but they can't qualify for it.
Right. And they can go into other counties and possibly qualify, which is unfortunate because of taxes, the higher taxes in specific counties.
So,
yeah, that is crazy. And Coach Ella, thinking about the taxes, when I looked at just in the DMV, the personal property taxes in Montgomery County, and then I looked all the way out in Baltimore, it was crazy. Property taxes in the state of Maryland, Montgomery County has one of the lowest property taxes, right? But when you go out to Baltimore, where all people of color live, it's one of the highest, right? So your point about not being able to buy a home because the taxes are so expensive, that's a government issue, right? That is not a bank issue. It's a government issue. There's a question in the chat. My good brother Glenn, what's going on, Glenn? Good to see you, champ. He asked the question: how do we save money when you are spending everything you got to stay in the house that you're renting? Why can't rent prove that you'll pay a mortgage? That's a great bank question, Michelle. Why can't rent prove that you can pay your mortgage?
I mean, and technically it does prove that you can pay a mortgage because we do a verification of rent when we do qualifications on clients. But you still have federal guidelines. So it's not county, it's not state guidelines. These are federal guidelines that you have to fall within. And your debt to income ratio has to be a certain amount. There's a limit to your debt to income ratio. And so what you have to ask yourself, I mean, how are you paying your rent? Is someone helping you that's not possibly going into the loan with you? Because we find that a lot. It may be 2 or 3 adults in a household, but they're trying to buy a house with one person's credit and one person's income. And that can't happen when you have 3 people actually making a rent payment.
Yeah, very true. Sylvester and Coach Ella, y'all want to chime in on that too?
Well, back to the initial question when we had mentioned about the government and the tax, I think that we have to start challenging our officials to possibly offer programs that are going to help our people get into the homes. And these are things that need to be specific and that is attainable from the standpoint of it is measured. If a tenant has demonstrated that they can pay their rent, but they chose not to have a credit card or a car payment, then to me there is something fundamentally wrong with that. But once again, if you're not educated, or if we're not challenging our government officials look into this, then it's going to continue.
Yeah, so let's do this really quick. Let's take 5-10 minutes between Michelle, Sylvester, and Coach Ella. Let's educate those who are listening. And this is a recorded session, so people will be able to play this over and over again. We'll make sure this gets broadcasted. Let's do a 10-minute education session between the three of you and talk about what things it is we need to know. Sylvester, we'll just start with you because you left off. You mentioned the reality of having a credit card when we're told sometimes in the Black community, don't get no credit card, right? Talk about the educational pieces. Michelle, Coach Ella, you guys just bounce off of each other as you guys talk about this education piece.
Okay. Well, just from an educational perspective, we have to let people know that unfortunately, until they change the rules within the lending system, you have to have so many trade lines. In most cases, unless it's a type of a government loan, and then Michelle can probably talk more details about your FHA loans that may not require those specific trade lines.
What's a trade line? Let's rewind.
Right, and that is of course, your car payment can be considered one, a credit card, and even a student loan if it's current. So those typically are enough trade lines, plus with your verification of rent or your down payment, that should be enough unless it is a different type of program. But like I mentioned earlier, our government have the funding to assist. So I think that we have to definitely start challenging our government officials to start assisting our people that's living in these certain communities that may need a little bit of help with a down payment to get them in the home, and also more importantly, to have some type of tax credit to assist them as well.
Okay, we'll keep passing this baton because I feel like Michelle and Coach Ella will say something to Sylvester that will make you want to say something else. So let's keep going around. We talked trade lines. Now, Michelle, you got the baton. Let's run with it.
Okay. So what I was going to say, when we're pre-approving people for a loan, we're only concerned with trade lines, and those are the items listed on the credit report. We could care less about what you're paying on your cable bill, your Verizon bill, or any other bill outside of your credit report. We're only focused on those bills or that debt that's on your credit report. And each individual debt is considered a trade line. So from a mortgage perspective, we are looking to see that you have at least 2 to 3 open trade lines. Okay. And the other thing I wanted to mention too, as far as assisting with down payment and closing costs, there are some really great programs out here in the DMV area. I mean, some really great programs that will help you with down payment and or closing costs. Some can help you with both. But they all have their own stipulations. They all have their own guidelines, which may restrict someone from buying as much of a house as they normally would be able to buy without using a program. And what we have to understand is, as first-time home buyers, if we're barely getting by with the credit, we don't have enough cash, sometimes we have to lower our standards just a little bit for that first house, just to start to build that equity in that first house. And then once we're in that house and we're building that equity, then we can move up to that bigger house in 3, 5, 7 years down the road. Coach Ella?
Oh, let me take a mic.
Okay, unmute. No, I totally agree. So for anybody that is really, home ownership should be on your list. So as Sylvester said, if you got to stay at home for a little bit longer, it's okay. Mom and dad don't mind, because I told my kids, it's like, you can stay a little longer because I understand the value of being a homeowner. And so Michelle says, okay, you might not be able to get the granite and the hardwood floors and all of these expectations, but it's your house. You can, those details, things like that, you can get flooring, and we can work a couple of extra hours and you can get the flooring, but you don't have to have it into a note. But the biggest thing is connecting with your lender partners. We cannot stress this enough. A lot of times we just don't get the information up front, like correct information up front. So you want to connect with your lender partner. You want to reach out to Michelle. You want to say, okay, where do I stand? Because a lot of times, even prior to you going to a credit repair person, you guys are listening to all of these third-party credit companies, and it's like you're thinking you're doing the right thing, but you're hurting your credit. So you want to know where you are position wise. So even if it takes you a year to get it together, at least you have Michelle on the thing and say, you know what, this is what I see. If you truly want to be able to buy a home, this is the things that you need to do. Here are the steps. A lot of times we don't want to hear that. We just want to go and get it. Why is it that, what kills me is when you were saying that, okay, you got a Porsche in an apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, because they'll give you a car, they'll give you like a 25% interest rate and you
In a
okay
heartbeat.
with it.
Mm-hmm.
And you okay with it. You can't be okay with that. So understanding your money, understanding why credit works. They tell us, oh, I hated credit cards. I was like, I don't want no credit cards because I knew what it would do. It's like it keeps you in debt. But the flip side of it, they want you in debt. Well, I mean, I don't understand it, but that's how the system works. But you just got to be responsible with your debt. And so when you do go to the lender, and if you do have a little blemishes, a little thing, we always just say credit challenge. Being credit challenged, don't be ashamed of that, because the thing is, some point in time, we all have been credit challenged. Credit challenge don't mean you broke. Credit challenge don't mean you low income. Credit challenge is just your credit challenge. And so one of the things that Real Estate Ladies Rock, the group has done, I've challenged all of the ladies. I want you to go out here specifically and go find 20 credit challenge people. I want you to help them to become homeowners.
Wow.
And that's an impact, because
That's
that
awesome.
is probably a high statistic of people out there is that they have credit challenge. And that's the reason why they don't, seek home ownership. You can go get a car and your credit jacked up, but they'll give you a car. And you can go get an apartment or you can go high rent. Why do you want to pay somebody else's mortgage when you can pay your own mortgage? And so take the time to say, you know what, because rent, Michelle, you said $2,000 a month. Yeah, rent is expensive. But what you pay in rent, you can own. And so I just would encourage everybody to work on, being financially free. And then once you own that one house, let that house do what it's supposed to do, make money for you. It's not supposed to hurt you. It's supposed to make money for you. Then you can join Sylvester team.
Yep.
Sylvester team is going to help you buy more properties. I told my kids, they old now, but they still my babies. Look, I told them, I said, look, by the time you retire from your government job or whatever job, you're going to have 10 properties.
Wow.
You're going to buy 10 properties, and then that's going to be your retirement. Because let me just say this, the regular retirement, don't expect that to take care of you, because it's not. And so let's get it together. That's why we're here on this forum. So I appreciate you, Dr. Otley, because people just need to know there's hope. And you're not out of this game. You are in this game. That's why you have people like this, is because I challenge everybody that's listening. You too can be a homeowner if you're not. And if you are a homeowner, you can own 2 or 3. That's what everybody else is doing.
Yes, they are.
Right?
Yep, they sure are.
Yeah. And then also don't be afraid to also use different type of strategies with home ownership. There may be certain neighborhoods that are on the decline. Those buildings may be vacant, but some communities in this country right now, you can buy some home, believe it or not, anywhere from $1,000 up to $10,000. So if you're possibly willing to possibly relocate, and as a matter of fact, I had a friend that used to live in DC. When I purchased my home, he moved from DC back to St. Louis because he wanted to also start buying real estate as well, because he was priced out of the market out in DC. So with that being said, we have a lot of communities right now that have been depressed. So we need to focus on buying some of those properties, and a lot of us are handy, and we just work on those homes. It's a different way of becoming a homeowner as the traditional way, but you're still a homeowner. Also, you are helping with the appreciation of the neighborhood as you're buying these vacant buildings as well. Don't be afraid to take a risk and take a chance.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people come to me, and by the time I'm done with them, they're telling me I never even realized I could buy a house today. They don't realize. I mean, it is a simple process. If you have that minimum score,
right?
If you fall within some of these first-time home buying guidelines, it's not a hard process.
Michelle, can you talk about one of those programs?
Huh?
talk about at least one of those programs, because you mentioned that every program is different, has different stipulations, but I just want everybody to at least hear what one of those, the name of one of those programs, and then maybe what stipulations they should start thinking about as they prepare to buy their first home.
Okay, well, I'm gonna name three because we're in the DMV area. So in VA, in Virginia, there's the VHDA program, which will give you all the money you need for your down payment as a first-time home buyer. And for clarification, a first-time home buyer is someone who has never owned a home or someone who has not owned a home within the past 3 years.
Okay.
Considered a first-time home buyer again. In DC, there's DC Open Doors. DC Open Doors will also cover all of your down payment, 3 to 3.5% of your sales price in order for you to get into that home. And then in Maryland, there's quite a few, and there's more in addition to these. I'm just naming the top three. In Maryland, one of the biggest ones that you can use statewide is the Maryland Mortgage Program. The Maryland Mortgage Program has so many programs under its umbrella. It has a 3% program that will give you 3% towards down payment and closing costs. It has a 4% grant program. It even has a program that will pay off your student loans up to $40,000 if you qualify for that.
Wow.
So there's so many programs out here that people are unaware of, and there actually a lot of people in our community are afraid to talk to me as the lender. They're for whatever reason they're more comfortable talking to Coach Ella as a real estate agent, but extremely afraid to talk to me as a lender because of the lack of knowledge when it comes to financing. But then once they talk to me and I break it down and we start really, getting into their finances and determining what they can and can't qualify for, that helps them become more comfortable, and they realize how easy it really is to become a homeowner once they get started with the process.
What's some of the other stipulations you just mentioned, like the 3% down that, or they may pay for the student loans? But what are the things that people in these programs have to bring to the table?
So for the ones that cover the down payment, you still have closing costs. Okay, you still have closing costs that are associated with the loan. Closing costs are one-time fees that you pay at the time of closing. In our area, the DMV area, closing costs, we have one of the highest closing cost ratios in the country, but it's roughly anywhere from 4.5% to 5% right now of the sales price. Because we have switched over to a full-fledged seller's market, not all sellers are paying any closing costs, but prior to this time, some sellers were paying at least 3% of the closing costs, which would leave that buyer to bring 1.5% to 2%, which, to break that down in layman's terms, if you're buying a $300,000 house, you may need anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 out of pocket total, which is not a lot to buy a house. And a lot of times that's more than your first and last month payment for rent. When you're going out there to rent an apartment. Right.
Yeah, that's good. Let's jump into a couple of questions. Coach Ella's, Sylvester, Michelle from the chat. There's really quick. This one is for you, Michelle. What was the name of the one in Maryland again? The loan or the program?
That's just one of many. It's called the Maryland Mortgage Program, MMP for short.
Okay, cool. And then this is Teresa Miller through Facebook. Hey, Teresa. I asked a question, what's the best strategy for paying down student loans? Should they pay it off or pay it down by how much?
As far as paying down debt, this is going to be with student loans or any other type of debt. As a lender, we're not concerned with the total balance. The total balance means nothing to us. What we're concerned with is that minimum monthly payment for each trade line you have on your credit report. So the lower your monthly payment, if you can consolidate those student loans, get into an IDR payment, where that stands for income-driven repayment plan, you can get into that and get that monthly payment down as low as possible. Still make, let's say you get the payment down to $55 a month, but you still want to pay $500 a month. That's fine. We're not concerned with that $500 a month that you pay. We're only concerned with that minimum that is required by that creditor, which is that $55 per month. And that's what we use to help calculate your debt to income ratio. So the key is to get your monthly payments down to as low as possible.
Okay, cool. The DMV, we mentioned Maryland, DC. Michael, great seeing you as well. Glad you could join the show tonight. Michael asked a question about, is there anybody in the maybe Virginia area, Old Town Alexandria area related to some of these types of programs?
VHDA.
VA.
VHDA is available in Northern Virginia, and that will cover all of your down payment, 3 to 3.5%. So that will cover whether you go FHA or conventional. It's actually a really great program.
Okay, I'm glad Dee mentioned this question in the chat. Any good book suggestions, Dee? That you took that question right out of my heart because I'm a heavy reader. Coach Ellis, Investor Michelle, are there any great books that our guests could just purchase, and start reading about real estate investment, purchasing homes, all that kind of stuff? Oh, I know y'all read. Come on. I know y'all read.
No, we definitely read. I mean, as far as fundamentals of buying a house, there's none that I can think of.
Okay.
And maybe one of us need to do that.
Yeah, come together and write a book. I mean, Coach, with your organization, Sylvester, with your background in investment, and then Michelle, with you working in the bank. I mean, I'm sure the knowledge is here, right? There has not been a manual that I've ever seen created for our community, particularly that one will help to educate the community, but then also, Sylvester, you mentioned it earlier, to help sustain. Because just because I can get in the house, how do I keep it? Because now that we're in COVID-19, the government has allowed for, and correct me if I'm wrong, but has allowed for rent or not mortgage payments to kind of be placed on the back end. But what about when that's lifted? What if people can't still afford to pay their mortgages? Does that mean that they're evicted?
That's going to depend on the mortgage company that they're with, because different mortgage companies are doing different things. Some of them, they'll put you in a 3-month forbearance, but come month number 4, they want all 4 months paid at one time. And who can do that? If you haven't been paying for the past 3 months, how can you pay 4 months at one time? And then you have other lenders that are allowing you to go into forbearance, and then they're just adding that forbearance amount onto the principal of the loan. That makes more sense. So people have to be really careful when going into these forbearances and making sure they fully understand what their mortgage company is expecting.
And I would just say, for one, continue to pay if you can pay, because what's going to happen is we're going to see this 2007, 2008 situation where, there is not going to be a bailout for us. There may be a bailout for everybody else, but it's not going to be for us. One of the things I wanted to, because you were talking about the education in the book, we started with my son and I, a nonprofit, Unity in the Community. And so basically what Unity in the Community is that education piece to what we call bridging the gap. So we want to educate everyone on how to become a homeowner, how to stay in your home, how to, starting from them when they're younger, because being financially free, what is that? It's not robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's not just, just having, getting a check and then you spend your whole check. I know it's good that you made a little extra, but we need to get to where Sylvester is. So Unity in the Community, I want us to be branched out everywhere. And to connect with organizations like yours, Mr. Otley, and what is it that you guys need for us to do? And that's where we have currently in our group, there's 37,000 real estate women, but there are 1 million of us all over. So how do you use us? Because I don't want to be just, we just this real estate agent that we just looking to, sell a house, but we are the resource. So how do you use this community of agents, of investors, of lenders? We are your resource. And so you can come to us. So what do we do? Well, they can come to us as that resource of how to get, out of this situation. So I want to talk to you before you get ready to buy, so that when you do go buy, you don't have to worry about Michelle put me through this whole ringer. No, because your credit right, you got your money right, you understand the process, because it is bosses. I'm just because I know that I have my real estate ladies there I streamed it into the group. And the thing is that we have to step up. We cannot be silent. We complain about a lot of stuff, but in reality, what are we doing? It's we can't blame nobody but ourselves. We have to take some responsibility. Yes, have been disserviced. Things are happening, but we can do something about it, because when enough of us speak up,
Yes.
it cannot be denied. So do you want to own? You're going to get your stuff in order? Are you going to work towards it? If I tell you what you need to do, are you going to, trust the process? Michelle got your back. Sylvester, we got a women's group, Sylvester, of investors. So I got to give it to my brothers. We'll help.
Okay, thank you.
Think about it. Own property. You know where the millionaires are? They in real estate. They in real estate. They're investing their money. So if you need to stay home, Sylvester, you were talking about creative ways. Well, shucks, I might get a 4-unit complex, a duplex, or whatever, and I'll stay in one and make some money out of the other.
Exactly.
Correct.
Exactly. So if you want to live in an apartment, that's cool, but own the building.
That's
yes.
Whether it's a 2 or 4-unit.
A 2-unit or 4-unit. So I'll be paying rent in one, and the other person paying the other rent, paying my mortgage for the building. So So you see why you need us folks out there. This is what it's about, is collaborating to make a move. Like, you can do anything. Like, so if you believe in home ownership, which you should, don't let anybody tell you renting is good, because renting is not good.
Yeah, that's great. I'm gonna we do a solid hour, and I'm gonna kind of wrap us up here. But Coach Ella, I'm so glad that that's how we're ending this, because you have brought the 4 voices at this table tonight. And not only have we shared out our expertise, provided a platform for people to take in some great information, but you have also charged us, Coach Ella, to hold up. We got to work together on this thing, right? And so I received the charge, and if it's on me, that I'm gonna send an email out this week to Sylvester, Michelle, and you, Coach Ella, and we just go back and forth until we figure this thing out, and we bring somebody else in who brings somebody else in. That's just what we're gonna do, right? Because you're absolutely right. It is incumbent upon us in the community, because ain't nobody else gonna do it. We can't keep looking for other people to do this for us. We're gonna have to do it ourselves, right? So I just want to kind of bring to a close and have each of you kind of share something, last minute, kind of bring us all together before we close out. We got 6 minutes, whatever is on your heart, whatever you want to share. And then somebody who mentioned book earlier, there was a conference I went to that was on house hacking. And so when Coach Ella was talking about buying the apartment complex and living in one of them, that's what they call house hacking, right? And so there's conferences out there. Coach Ella does conferences with her program. You're a woman, sign up through her. Her information, I'm sure, is online. If the 3 of you not only can give your last few comments, but also post in the chat. I think you have chat access. Post your information, please. Mention your email address, mention your websites, because people who have heard you tonight and people who will hear you in the next few weeks may want to reach out. So Michelle, we'll start with you on kind of like the closing words, then Sylvester, and then Coach Ella.
Okay, I just want to just say not to be afraid of home ownership. If you're on the fence or you have any questions, any doubts, feel free to call me. I talk to people all the time that don't plan on purchasing for another 6 months, 8 months, 12 months down the road, but they get with me now to make sure they're in a position to buy 12 months down the road. And that's what I'm here for. I'm not here just for you to purchase today. I'm here to help you get your things in order so you can purchase when you're ready to purchase. So I will put my information down. Don't hesitate. Call me on my cell phone, email me, whatever works for me.
My brother, Glenn Staples, jumped on. Michelle, you see at the bottom of the screen, Jason, get me in touch with Michelle. Hey, Glenn, brother, I promise you, Michelle is going to put her information. I appreciate just your comments, bro, because, you're right. You were transparent. He mentioned I'm paying over $2,000 in rent, but, banks aren't giving me a chance. And that's important. If you're paying that much in rent, then banks should be giving you a chance. So it's now the education of what other things do we got to put in place. So Michelle, drop your information there. Glenn, I hope you do. Yep. Sylvester.
The main thing is just to get started. Don't be afraid. Work on your credit, save your money, and think long term. I mean, I never would have thought almost 23 years later, the building, they're almost paid for now.
Mm-hmm.
And now my goal is to try to bring in others and do it on a bigger scale so I could help more people. So as long as you are definitely have your heart in the right place and you are truly trying to help build wealth through real estate, and don't be afraid, everything will work out. That's the most important thing. Just take that plunge and have faith and use your network.
Sylvester, I appreciate that. Let me follow up. Sylvester, I won't call you tonight. I promise you I didn't keep you up late. But I'll be
Okay.
calling you this week. I do want to tap into some of the things that you're doing. You're doing some amazing things, and this is why we do these calls. This is why we're on here week to week to week, because every week somebody is bringing something to the table that somebody in the village needs. Right? It takes a village, right? And so this is what we do week to week to week. So if I have been blessed by the three of you dropping all these gems and nuggets, I'm just imagining all the people who are listening and will listen who will also be blessed. So I appreciate that. Sylvester, drop your information in the chat. And
Okay.
make sure it's plugged in there. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, Coach Ella, please, as you so eloquently kind of started off tonight, just, dropping gems and diamonds and rubies and pearls, lay something out on us tonight.
So I'm so thankful, Mr. Otley, for the opportunity to be here. This is what, I want to leave everybody with is you don't have to dream about it anymore. Implement it. And I want you to just say yes to home ownership. Not one home, but you'll have several. Claim it. We'll make it happen. If you're ready, we're ready. And so I make that commitment to you, Michelle, Sylvester, and then of course, Mr. Glenn, we can connect you with somebody that can get it done right. But I challenge all of my the real estate community that's out there. I need us to step up, level up, and make this happen. So yes to home ownership. And
Yeah.
I'll put my info in there. Thank you so much. I know I'm like way over the top here, but
No, you're good.
that's what we do.
You did. Yeah, this is what we do in our community. You go to church, it don't always start on time, and it certainly don't end on time, right? We have been really good about that, but making sure that we start and end on time. But the information that was coming through tonight from the three of you was just impeccable. So give me a few seconds, those who are still listening, to put this information into the chat box that Michelle has put in there. I just put it back on there. You guys should see it. Now you should see Sylvester's information. Coach Ella, drop your information. I would like Michelle's in the DMV. Coach Ella, you're in the DMV. Sylvester, you're in St. Louis, but you've got ties to the DC area as well. I would like for us to talk about, the four of us, so we can talk about it offline, how we can bring something to the DMV area before the year is out. I know we're in COVID, so it doesn't mean that we rent a building or rent a room. We may do something virtual, right? Because we can do this right here virtually, but we can advertise, we can promote an educational experience. We can call it a boot camp. We can do a 1 day, a 2 day, and just have speakers lined up who can touch on every area related to home ownership and purchasing, from credit to knowing who to go after for lending, right? Who they should trust in the process, all of that stuff. So I really think that we can probably put something together. And I'm saying this publicly, right? And I'm saying it publicly because I'm charging myself to do it too, right? I think we can really put something together, even if it's a virtual experience before the end of the year, and really allow other people to be blessed. And I'd love to even keep track of the number of people who come in to that experience, and we track them and see how many have purchased homes, right? Of the 31,000, Coach Ella, I'm gonna come back to you really quick. Of the 31,000 people who are part of your organization, and the millions who probably have seen your information, have you all looked at the number of people who came in who were first-time home buyers, and then how long it took them in that home buying process to actually secure their first home?
So we have 37,000.
Oh, 37.
So I think put that in there.
Mhm.
Yes, 37. But the thing is that it's not a long process. Even if you credit challenge, and we are working on, I've committed to, and every lady has committed to helping 20. Of course, we'll help more. But the
Mhm.
thing is, it's like 60 to 90 days. The first
Mhm.
thing is just find out where you are. So I don't
Mhm.
mind Unity in the Community, the nonprofit that we have, to host this for you, to even charge this with you, is that I believe that we can touch every single person out there that even thought about it. If you just thought about it, that's all we need you to do, is just believe that you can get it done.
Mhm.
We'll help you. And it's not a long process. Michelle can speak on it. It's typically, you may just to get to 640, and you may be at just a little minor tweaks in your
Mhm.
credit. It does not take a long time. And even if it took a year, we here. Like, we're not going nowhere. So
Mhm.
I'm here forever. Like, so if you say yes, I'm gonna be there. Trust me, I'm gonna
Yeah,
be there, and I know these folks will too.
I love it. Thank you, Coach Ella. Yeah, I love it. Hey, this question really quick, we're going to get off after this, because Coach Ella mentioned the credit score of 640. There was a question that came to me by text. My cousin Patsy, what's up, Patsy? Can you qualify? Like, talk about the band, the credit score range, Michelle. If you have low credit, like, what is the minimum number you need to really kind of get in to your first home?
640. Prior to COVID, it was 580. Believe it or not, it was 580 middle score. When I say middle score, so as a lender, what we do is we pull all three credit bureaus. 2 of those 3 have to be a 640 or higher. And this is while we're in COVID. Will it go back to 580 after COVID? We don't know. But as of right now, the minimum score needed is a 640 credit score. And like Coach Ellis said, it may be you may be at a 595. And you may just need to do something as small as pay $200 on a credit card balance to get up to that 640 plus score. Sometimes it's just that simple, but that's what we're here for, to help and guide you through that process and getting that 640 score if
Yeah, that's
necessary.
good. Okay. Love it. I love all of y'all. Sylvester, Coach Ella, Michelle, this has been phenomenal. I mean, I've been sitting here taking copious notes while y'all been talking. Super excited to even, do this part 2, and not a part 2 on this platform, but a part 2, where we promoted this thing, we've advertised this thing, we're giving out, free services to folks because we know they need it, right? And if we don't give it to them, who will?
Right.
So
Exactly.
thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
It has been a true pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Ali.
Yeah.
Michelle, Coach Ella, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Yes, sir.
Virtual.
Yes, thank you guys.
All right. You all take care.
You
Okay.
too.
Okay.